I, 35-year-old male, always thought my marriage with Sarah, 32-year-old female, was rock solid. Like, not perfect or anything, but solid enough that I never saw what was coming. We'd been together for almost 9 years, married for 7 of those, and I genuinely believed we were in it for the long haul. Man, was I wrong. Some background on me. I grew up in a blue-collar family in Ohio. Dad worked at the steel mill for 30 years until it closed down in 2008, and Mom was a school cafeteria worker who made the best damn meatloaf in the county. They weren't rich by any means, but they taught me the value of hard work and saving for a rainy day. I followed in their footsteps and became a construction project manager. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills with plenty left over. I was making around $75,000 when all this went down. Sarah and I met at my cousin's wedding. She was a friend of the bride, and honestly, she took my breath away that night. She was wearing this blue dress that matched her eyes perfectly, and she had this laugh that made everyone around her smile. We hit it off immediately, talking until 2 a.m. under the stars after most of the guests had left. Back then, she was working as a receptionist at a fancy dental office, making about $32,000 a year. She always talked about going back to school to become a dental hygienist, but somehow that plan kept getting pushed back year after year. When we got married, Sarah was still the same sweet, caring woman I fell in love with. Or so I thought. Looking back now, I can see how she changed little by little. It started with small things. Designer purses she'd find on sale but would hide the receipts, spa days that became more frequent, and a general attitude that we deserved the best, even when our budget said otherwise. In 2015, my grandpa passed away. We were really close. He taught me how to fish, how to fix an engine, how to be a man. When he died, he left me about $180,000 more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Sarah immediately had a million ideas on how to spend it. Luxury vacation, new cars, kitchen remodel. I put my foot down and said most of it was going into savings and investments. We compromised by using $95,000 as a down payment on our house in 2018. It was a nice 4-bedroom in a good school district, not because we had kids. Sarah always had reasons to wait another year. First, it was wanting to be more financially stable. Then it was wanting to advance in her career, which never actually happened. Then it was some vague health concerns that never seemed to get diagnosed. Looking back, I realized she never wanted kids with me. She just wanted my resources. My buddy Mike saw through her from the beginning. Dude, she's high maintenance, he told me about 6 months after we started dating. I defended her, saying she just had standards and appreciated quality. What a chump I was. Sarah would get her nails done weekly, $60, hair done monthly, $200 plus, and was constantly buying designer clothes that mysteriously never had price tags when they entered our house. The warning signs were all there, but I was too blind to see them clearly. About a year before everything blew up, Sarah started acting different. She stopped asking about my day, started getting texts at weird hours that she'd always check in another room, would leave our home office to take calls, claiming it was just work stuff, even though it was 8 p.m. on a Saturday. Classic cheating behavior, right? But it turned out to be something even more calculated. It was a Wednesday night in January. I remember it clearly because it was unusually warm for that time of year, and I'd spent the day overseeing a foundation pour that had to be rescheduled twice due to weather. I was tired but satisfied with the day's work. We were watching some reality show about people building tiny houses. Pretty ironic looking back. Sarah was barely paying attention, scrolling through her phone most of the time when she suddenly sits up like she just had an epiphany. "Babe, we should refinance the house," she says, not even looking up from her phone. "Interest rates are super low right now. My friend Jennifer just saved like $400 a month. Made sense to me. I'm always down for saving money. It's how I was raised, but then she drops the bomb. But we should put it in my name just temporarily." I nearly choked on my water. What? Why would we do that? She had this whole speech ready like she'd been rehearsing it for days. "My credit score is 796 and yours is only 752. We'll get a much better rate if it's just in my name. It's only temporary. We can add your name back after closing. You trust me, right? After all these years, that last part. That fucking you trust me, right?" That's what sent alarm bells ringing. In 9 years together, Sarah never talked like that. It was manipulative as hell and so out of character that it was like watching a stranger wearing my wife's face. I also knew it was complete bullshit about the credit scores. Mine was actually 768 last time I checked, and a 750 plus score gets you the best rates. Anyway, the difference between a 768 and a 796 would be negligible, if anything. Instead of starting a fight, I just nodded and said, "Yeah, let me think about it." Meanwhile, my gut was screaming that something was seriously wrong. That night, I barely slept. Sarah was snoring peacefully next to me, but I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together all the little changes I'd noticed over the past few months. The next morning, over breakfast, Sarah brought it up again. "So, what do you think about the refinance thing? Should I set up an appointment with the bank?" I shrugged, playing it casual. "Let me look at our current rate first. I'll check it tonight." She seemed annoyed by my hesitation. "Rates won't stay this low forever. We need to act fast. Just give me a day to look things over," I said. Sarah rolled her eyes. "Fine, but don't blame me if we miss out on saving hundreds every month." As soon as she left for work, I pulled up our mortgage information. Our rate was 3.75%. Not bad at all. Current rates were around 3.25%. Yes, we could save some money, but it wasn't the incredible opportunity she was making it out to be. Something else was going on, and I needed to figure out what. The next day, I called my college buddy Dan, who works as a real estate attorney. We met up for lunch at this diner near my work site, a place with terrible coffee, but the best club sandwiches in town. "Dude, do not sign anything," Dan told me after I explained what was going on. "This is textbook asset hiding before divorce. I see this shit all the time." "Divorce?" I nearly dropped my sandwich. "We're not getting divorced." Dan gave me this look like I was a naive kid. "Maybe you're not planning on it, but it sounds like she might be. Why else would she want the house solely in her name? The credit score thing is nonsense. Any mortgage broker will tell you that." My stomach turned. "You really think she's planning to leave me?" "I don't know, man, but I do know that sudden interest in refinancing with only one spouse on the deed is a huge red flag. It's like the first chapter in the How to Screw Over Your Spouse handbook." He advised me to start documenting everything and to be careful about what I signed. He also recommended a good divorce attorney just in case. I took the name but still couldn't believe it would come to that. That weekend, Sarah went to some girls' brunch that mysteriously lasted 6 hours. She'd been doing these long brunches with increasing frequency over the past few months. I used the time to do some digging. I'm not proud of snooping, but something wasn't adding up. Sarah always left her laptop at home during these outings, and she'd recently changed her password. Fortunately, she'd written the new one on a sticky note hidden in her desk drawer. Classic Sarah, terrible at remembering passwords and terrified of using a password manager because she didn't trust them. What I found made me physically sick. In her email, I found messages with a divorce attorney from 3 months earlier. There were consultations, fee discussions, and strategy planning. She'd been meeting with this attorney during those brunches. Even worse, there was a spreadsheet she'd made listing all our assets and what she thought she could get in the divorce. She'd even written "House 100% mine" after refinance with a smiley face emoji next to it, a fucking smiley face. I found emails between her and Jennifer discussing their plan. Jennifer had apparently gone through something similar with her second divorce and was advising Sarah on how to secure her future. There were references to me that made my blood boil, calling me clueless, saying I was too trusting for my own good, and laughing about how I wouldn't know what hit him. I took photos of everything and sent them to Dan. I also started quietly protecting myself. I opened a new bank account at a different bank and moved about $30,000 from our savings into it, not hiding it, just making sure she couldn't drain our accounts when she pulled the trigger. I started gathering financial documents, making copies of everything important, and secured my most valued possessions at Mike's house. About 2 weeks later, Sarah comes home all cheerful, which was weird because she'd been cold as ice for months unless she wanted something. "Good news," she says, dropping her expensive purse on the counter. "I handled all that refinance paperwork. The new rate is locked in. You don't have to worry about a thing." I played dumb. "Oh, did I need to sign anything?" She hesitated for a split second. "Nope, it was all electronic. I used that DocuSign thing with your email. So much easier." She had forged my signature on legal documents for my house, the one I paid for with my inheritance. I nodded and smiled, but inside I was reeling. This wasn't just divorce planning anymore. This was fraud, criminal fraud. And I had her admission on my phone, which I'd started recording as soon as she walked in the door. "That's great," I said, keeping my voice steady. "When does the new rate kick in?" "Next month," she said, already losing interest in the conversation and checking her phone. "We'll save about $320 a month." "Awesome," I replied. "Thanks for handling that." That night, I sent the recording to Dan, who forwarded it to his contact at the district attorney's office. Things were about to get very real for Sarah, but she had no idea. A few weeks after the refinance, Sarah started having her friend Jennifer over more often. Jennifer, 34-year-old female, was this twice-divorced paralegal who always had something negative to say about men. She drove a BMW she couldn't afford and was always between relationships with guys who had money. I never liked her, but tolerated her for Sarah's sake. Jennifer worked at a prestigious law firm downtown, handling mostly corporate cases, but she clearly thought this made her a legal expert on everything. She was always giving Sarah legal advice that I would overhear snippets of, usually followed by both of them going silent when I entered the room. One Thursday, I came home early from work because a rainstorm had halted construction. I didn't announce myself when I came in because I heard voices in the kitchen and was curious what they were discussing so intensely. I stopped in the hallway when I heard my name. "He still has no idea?" Jennifer asked, giggling. "None," Sarah replied. "God, men are so stupid. He actually thanked me for handling the refinance." "When are you dropping the bomb?" "Next month. My attorney says we should wait for the refinance cooling period to end or something. Then the house is legally mine, free and clear." And he put in what, like $100,000 of his inheritance? $95,000. Plus, he's been paying the mortgage for years while I've been stashing cash in my secret account. They fucking clinked glasses over, screwing me over. "To your new life as a wealthy single woman," Jennifer toasted. "And to finally being free of his annoying family and his boring friends," Sarah added. "I'm thinking of selling the house right away and using the money to open that boutique I've always wanted." "What about the divorce settlement?" Jennifer asked. "Mark says I should get at least half his 401k too, and probably alimony since I sacrificed my career for the marriage, or whatever. It's over $200,000 combined." I recorded the whole thing on my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it, but I managed to get every word. I quietly left the house and drove straight to Dan's office. When I played him the recording, his eyes went wide. "Holy shit, James. This is beyond what I expected. This is conspiracy to commit fraud." "What do I do now?" I asked. "We need to get you a criminal attorney as well as a divorce attorney. This isn't just a civil matter anymore." That afternoon, I met Kevin Harmon, the most cutthroat divorce attorney in the county. He wasn't cheap, $375 an hour, but as he put it, "You're not paying me to be nice. You're paying me to be a nightmare for her." Kevin listened to the recording, reviewed the evidence I'd gathered, and gave a low whistle. "Your wife and her friend aren't just nasty, they're stupid. This is documentary evidence of premeditated fraud. I almost feel bad for how hard they're going to fall." He outlined a strategy. Wait for Sarah to file for divorce, which we knew was coming. Act surprised and devastated. Let her think she was winning, then drop the hammer in court when she least expected it. "The best revenge isn't just winning," Kevin said. "It's watching them realize they've lost everything because of their own greed." Like clockwork, about a month later, Sarah hit me with divorce papers. She tried to act all sad about it too, which was the most insulting part. I was working from home that day, catching up on project blueprints at the dining room table. She came in, dressed nicer than usual for a weekday, and set a manila envelope in front of me. "We need to talk," she said, her voice artificially soft. I looked up, playing confused. "What's this?" "I've been thinking about us a lot lately," she began, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "I just don't think we want the same things anymore. You don't want kids, you don't want to travel. Complete bullshit. I always wanted kids. I'd been saving for a Europe trip for our 10-year anniversary. She was the one who kept finding reasons not to move forward with either plan." "What are you saying?" I asked, keeping my voice uncertain. She pushed the envelope closer to me. "I think it's best if we separate. I've drawn up some papers that I think are fair to both of us." I opened the envelope and pretended to be shocked as I read through the filing. "Divorce? Sarah, where is this coming from? Can we talk about this? Maybe get counseling?" She patted my hand like I was a fucking child. "I think we're beyond that, sweetie. Don't worry. We'll keep this clean and simple. I've already drawn up a settlement agreement." "Yeah, I bet you have." The agreement gave her the house, both cars, including my truck, and half my 401k. In exchange, I got to keep my tools, personal items, and a generous $25,000 cash payment for my share of the house. I put my head in my hands, playing the devastated husband. I can't believe this is happening. I thought we were happy. "We just grew apart," she said, standing up. "I'll give you some time to look over the papers. My attorney says we can be done with all this in about 2 months if you cooperate." As she walked out, she turned back. "Oh, and I'll need you to find somewhere else to stay by next weekend. I'm having the house painted, and it'll be easier if you're not here." The audacity of this woman was unbelievable. She was kicking me out of my house that she had fraudulently put in her name. "Sure," I mumbled, still playing defeated. "I'll figure something out." As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I called Kevin. She did it just like we expected. "Perfect," he said. "Bring the papers to my office, and remember, keep playing the heartbroken husband until court. The bigger her confidence, the harder she'll fall." For the next few weeks, I played my role perfectly. I moved in with Mike, taking only clothes and personal items, making Sarah think I was too broken to fight back. I signed nothing but told her I was still processing everything and needed time. She grew increasingly impatient, texting me things like, "The sooner you sign, the sooner we can both move on. And my attorney says, you're just delaying the inevitable." Meanwhile, Kevin was building our case, gathering evidence, and preparing for what he called the legal equivalent of a nuclear bomb. Our first court date arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning. Sarah showed up in a tight black dress that probably cost more than my first car. Jennifer was with her, both of them looking like they were headed to a celebration dinner afterward. Sarah's attorney, Mr. Brooks, was this slick guy in his 50s with a fake tan and cufflinks that screamed, "I overcharge." When Sarah spotted me with Kevin, she actually smirked and whispered something to Jennifer, who giggled. They thought this was going to be easy, just a formality before Sarah walked away with everything. We took our seats on opposite sides of the courtroom. I kept my eyes down, playing nervous and defeated. Kevin had instructed me to let Sarah's confidence build until the right moment. Judge Patricia Martinez, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a tight bun, called the court to order. She had a reputation for being fair, but absolutely intolerant of games and dishonesty. Mr. Brooks went first, straightening his expensive tie as he stood. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward dissolution of marriage. My client, Mrs. Sarah Mitchell, is the sole owner of the marital residence, as clearly shown by these mortgage and title records." He handed some documents to the clerk. "Additionally, she has been the primary contributor to household expenses for years, while Mr. Mitchell frittered away money on his hobbies and personal interests." Complete bullshit. I paid 80% of all our bills. Sarah's contribution was basically her cell phone and her personal shopping. "We've prepared a fair and equitable division of assets," Mr. Brooks continued. "Mrs. Mitchell is willing to be quite generous, offering Mr. Mitchell $25,000 for his contribution to the marital home despite the property being solely in her name." Judge Martinez reviewed the documents, her expression neutral. "And you've disclosed all assets fully, Mrs. Mitchell?" she asked directly. Sarah nodded confidently. "Yes, Your Honor." "Mr. Harmon, your response?" the judge asked, turning to Kevin. When it was our turn, Kevin didn't rush. He methodically organized his files, making Sarah wait, making her squirm. I could see her getting annoyed by what she perceived as stalling. "Your Honor," he finally said, "my client doesn't dispute that the house is currently in Mrs. Mitchell's name. However, we have conclusive evidence proving that the transfer of ownership was done fraudulently and with malicious intent to deprive my client of his rightful property." Sarah's smug expression faltered. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The judge's eyebrow raised slightly. "Those are serious allegations, Counselor. Indeed they are, Your Honor, and we're prepared to prove every one." Kevin then laid out our case methodically, like a prosecutor in a murder trial. First, he presented the timeline. Sarah consulting with divorce attorneys 3 months before suggesting the refinance, the forged documents, the secret emails, bank statements showing Sarah had been hiding money in a secret account for months. "Your Honor, my client contributed $95,000 of his inheritance as a down payment on this property. He has paid approximately 80% of the mortgage payments throughout the marriage." Mrs. Mitchell, through forgery and fraud, transferred the property solely to her name without my client's knowledge or consent. Mr. Brooks jumped up. "Objection. These are baseless accusations, are they?" Kevin replied calmly, sliding a folder to the judge. "We have here a forensic handwriting analysis confirming that Mr. Mitchell's signature was forged on the refinance documents. We also have emails between Mrs. Mitchell and her divorce attorney discussing this plan months before execution." The judge's expression darkened as she reviewed the documents. Mr. Brooks looked sideways at Sarah, who was now visibly nervous. "Furthermore," Kevin continued, "we have evidence that Mrs. Mitchell has been concealing assets in preparation for this divorce, including a bank account at First National with a current balance of $43,652, which was not disclosed in her financial affidavit." Sarah's face went white. She hadn't known I'd found out about that account. But the knockout blow came when Kevin played the recording of Sarah and Jennifer laughing about stealing my inheritance and planning to sell the house. "To your new life as a wealthy single woman." Jennifer's voice rang out clearly in the courtroom. and to finally being free of his annoying family and his boring friends. Sarah's voice followed. I'm thinking of selling the house right away and using the money to open that boutique I've always wanted. Sarah's face went from confident to horrified to furious in about 10 seconds. Jennifer, who had been sitting in the gallery, tried to slip out of the courtroom. But Kevin had anticipated this. Your Honor, we'd like to call Jennifer Davis as a witness as she was clearly involved in this conspiracy to defraud my client. The judge nodded to the bailiff who stopped Jennifer at the door. Additionally, Kevin continued, we're filing a separate civil suit against both Mrs. Mitchell and Ms. Davis for fraud, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're also requesting that the district attorney's office review this case for potential criminal charges, including forgery and mortgage fraud. Sarah started frantically whispering to her attorney, who was now looking at her like she was radioactive waste. He kept shaking his head and moving away from her slightly as if her problems might be contagious. Your Honor, Kevin concluded, given the overwhelming evidence of fraud and bad faith, we request that the house be immediately returned to my client's name only, that all legal fees be paid by Mrs. Mitchell, and that the court make a referral to the district attorney's office regarding the criminal matters. The judge removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. Mr. Brooks, do you have any response to these serious allegations against your client? Mr. Brooks stood slowly, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Your Honor, I would request a brief recess to confer with my client. Granted. 15 minutes, the judge banged her gavel. And Miss Davis, she added, looking at Jennifer, who was still being detained by the bailiff, don't leave the courthouse. I may have questions for you. In the hallway outside the courtroom, I could see Sarah and Mr. Brooks in an intense conversation around the corner. She was gesturing wildly, her face red with anger. He kept shaking his head and pointing firmly at the papers in his hand. After about 10 minutes, Mr. Brooks approached Kevin and me. My client would like to propose a settlement, he said stiffly, not quite making eye contact. Kevin laughed. We're way past settlement. We're pursuing criminal charges for fraud and filing a separate civil suit for damages. Mr. Brooks looked pained. Please, can we discuss this privately? 5 minutes. Kevin looked at me. I nodded. In the small conference room, Sarah had dropped the entitled act. Now she was crying, mascara running down her face. James, please, she begged. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. We can work this out. I just stared at her. This woman who I'd loved for 9 years, who I'd built a life with, who I did trusted completely, had plotted for months to steal everything from me. Like how you and Jennifer worked out how to steal my house. That was just talk. Girls saying stupid things. It wasn't serious. And the forged documents, the secret divorce plans, the hidden bank account with over $40,000. Just girl talk, too? She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away as if she were contagious. I'll give you back the house, she offered desperately. I'll sign whatever you want. We can even try counseling like you suggested. It's not your house to give back, I said coldly. It was never your house. Kevin laid it out for them. Sarah would face criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation. She'd be responsible for all court costs and my legal fees, around $26,000 at that point. And the civil suit would likely cost her another $150,000 plus in damages. But I don't have that kind of money, she wailed. Should have thought of that before you decided to become a criminal, I replied. Mr. Brooks, realizing his client had lied to him too and potentially exposed him to ethical violations, cleared his throat. I need to speak with the judge about my continued representation in this matter. When we returned to the courtroom, Mr. Brooks requested permission to withdraw from the case. Your Honor, based on information that has just come to light, I believe continuing to represent Mrs. Mitchell would put me in an ethical dilemma. I was not aware of the action she had taken regarding the mortgage refinancing or the undisclosed assets. The judge nodded. Request granted. Mrs. Mitchell, you'll need to find new counsel. However, that won't delay these proceedings, given the serious nature of the allegations. Sarah stood there alone at the defendant's table, looking suddenly small and frightened. Jennifer was sitting in the gallery, a bailiff standing nearby, her face pale. The judge's final ruling was devastating for Sarah. The house returned solely to my name, a restraining order against Sarah, preventing her from entering the property, all legal fees to be paid by her, and a referral to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Mrs. Mitchell, the judge said, her voice stern. The court takes a very dim view of the kind of fraud and deception evidenced here today. You deliberately attempted to defraud your husband and this court. There will be consequences for those actions. Sarah tried one last desperate move. But Your Honor, where am I supposed to live? All my things are in that house. The judge was unmoved. You should have considered the consequences before committing fraud. Mr. Harmon, I assume your client would be willing to arrange for Mrs. Mitchell's personal belongings to be packed and delivered to her. Kevin nodded. Of course, Your Honor. We can have her clothing and purely personal items packed by a neutral third party and delivered wherever she designates. So ordered, the judge concluded. And Mrs. Mitchell, I strongly suggest you retain criminal counsel immediately. Court adjourned. As a final twist of the knife, I had Kevin contact Jennifer's employer, a law firm that didn't take kindly to their paralegal being involved in mortgage fraud. She was fired within 24 hours, her career effectively over. Sarah's criminal case moved surprisingly quickly. The evidence was overwhelming, and the district attorney was eager to make an example of her. She ended up pleading guilty to reduce charges to avoid jail time, but still received a felony conviction, 200 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay financial restitution. She lost her dental office job because of the felony charge. Turns out dental offices don't want convicted fraudsters handling patient information and payments. About 6 months later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Sarah James, please. I'm desperate. I can't find work with this on my record. I'm living in Jennifer's spare room, and she's threatening to kick me out because I can't pay rent. I've learned my lesson. Can you please tell the district attorney to reduce the charges? I can't live like this. I waited 3 days to respond just to let her sweat. New phone. Who this? Then I blocked the number. 1 week later, I was at the hardware store picking up supplies for the kitchen renovation I was doing with my house, when I spotted Jennifer in the parking lot. Her BMW was gone, replaced by a beat-up Honda. She was thinner. Her designer clothes replaced by what looked like discount store finds. She actually had the nerve to approach me. James, can we talk? Sarah and I are really struggling. She can't even afford her medication. We made a terrible mistake, and we're truly sorry. Can you find it in your heart to help? I looked her dead in the eyes. Remember when you toasted to Sarah's new life as a wealthy single woman while plotting to steal my house? How's that working out for you both? Her face crumpled. We were stupid. We didn't think. No, you didn't. And now you get to live with the consequences. By the way, how's the job search going? I asked, knowing full well she couldn't get hired at any reputable law firm with her involvement in a fraud case. I'm working at a call center, she admitted, looking at the ground. Sarah's working at a fast food place when her back pain allows it. We can barely make rent. We're going to be evicted next month if something doesn't change. Sounds like a personal problem, I replied. Maybe you should have thought about that before you conspired to steal a man's home and inheritance. James, please. She was openly crying now. We're desperate. Sarah's talking about moving back in with her parents in Idaho. She's completely broken. Good, I said. Tell her I hope the weather in Idaho is nice this time of year. I walked away, got in my truck, and drove back to my house. On the way, I called Mike and Dan to thank them for having my back through everything. We made plans to watch the game that weekend at my place. That night, I sat on my porch looking at my house that I saved from my gold-digging ex-wife, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The house is now completely renovated. I used some of the savings I'd protected to redo the kitchen and bathrooms. I'm dating again, nothing serious, just enjoying meeting new people without the shadow of Sarah hanging over me. I've even started volunteering at a financial literacy program, helping people understand how to protect their assets and recognize financial red flags in relationships. Sometimes karma isn't just a bitch. Sometimes she's the sweetest revenge of all. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and comments. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, this is all 100% real, though I changed some minor details for privacy. 2. No, I don't feel bad about how things turned out for Sarah and Jennifer. They made their choices. 3. For those asking about the legal details, I'm not a lawyer, but my buddy Dan says mortgage fraud is a federal offense that can result in up to 30 years in prison and $1 million in fines. Sarah got off relatively easy with a felony record and no jail time. Yes, I've learned my lesson about keeping better track of financial documents and being more careful about who I trust.